The Enigma Report.
It's a little subdued. Let me tell you, folks, I think most folks think that the Enigma Report, because I own Renegade River, which is a federally licensed gun store, is going to be about the firearms industry and the changes that President Obama made. But we're going to touch on it a little bit, but you know what? That's not the focus. I have to ask you folks a question because it truly is an enigma to me. When you consider America, if you're some of the folks that think of America as exceptional, and by the way, and if you're not, both groups, please listen for a minute and ask yourself honestly. Get the mirror in front of you. Look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, when is America great? When does it lead? When is America successful? Is America defined by its leadership? No. America, if it's exceptional, if there have been moments in its history when it was exceptional, it wasn't because of a Bush or an Obama or a George Washington or anyone in between. It was because of the American citizen. It was because of you. The only time America is successful or America is a leader is when its people are successful and leaders. And when I look at what's going on in our world right now, and I pause and I think about last year with almost 48% of the babies born in America go to unwed mothers. We've got schools around us that provide 3 meals in a day and a doctor. They're public education schools. What are the parents' jobs? What are we doing, folks? What are we doing with our country? That is an enigma to me, that we can stand back and know that President Obama come up with this executive order over guns solely and only to get the negative news about terrorism off the front page. What are we thinking? When we see an article was written about me, not about me, about guns, they came and interviewed me. What was the headline on that, Matt Wiedenhoff? Impulse buys?
Impulse buy with a question mark.
Impulse buy. Folks, that has nothing to do with it. You don't come into a firearms store and make an impulse buy because you're going to be there quite a while doing paperwork, getting a federal background check done. You just not like buying a hat or a pair of socks. Those things are insulting to me. They really are. And I'm not going to get into which one. It doesn't make a difference. I had a local TV news interviewer come out to Renegade River and interview me recently. Okay? It was a 40-minute interview that they boiled down to 1.13 minutes. I get time. I understand it. I'm in media myself. What they did, first off, he left out what I perceive to be the good parts, but let's say we have an honest, different opinion. Somewhere during that 40 minutes, I laughed. Yes, I did. I laughed. But it was something that was funny. It wasn't out of place. But where it got to be a little bit out of place is when they cut that clip with me laughing out and put it at the beginning of the interview before you got to see who I am or where you were at or anything. And I'm watching it going, this is really clever stuff. This is how we've gotten in America from a time when we used to have high school rifle clubs and people were taught firearm safety to the point where eating your Pop-Tart into the shape of a handgun is cause for expulsion. Folks, something's going on in our country and it's not good. You have got to go Google the man in the mirror. Okay, look at that poem for a moment. Grab a mirror and look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, am I doing my part? Am I embracing civic duty? Remember, Matt, a couple weeks ago when I read the quote from JFK? Mm-hmm. It was about making sure that you're trained with your firearm. It was about making sure that you were ready to defend yourself, your family, and your country. John F. Kennedy, not some right-wing Tea Partier. Folks, we're not center-right, center-left. We're off target. We are flatly out of control is where I believe we are. Imagine 47, almost 48% of the babies. By the way, they're not teen pregnancies, folks. These are women that are in their 20s and 30s that are making this choice. And I go, okay, I can set that aside for a minute. It's a life choice. Didn't you know that? It's a life choice to raise your child without a complete family. By the way, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I was a single parent for a number of years. It wasn't a life choice. I get that sometimes in the course of life happens. I get it. Not half of America. It's not sustainable. Start doing get your Google out and start looking at the single parent rates of those folks that are sitting in federal and state jails. And ask yourself, who steals guns? Statistically, who steals guns? Statistically, who does drugs? Statistically, who engages in prostitution? Statistically, who thieves from their parent or parents? Statistically. Okay? Who needs to go to school and have 3 meals served to them by somebody working their butt off 3 states away with taxes? That's what I'm talking about. Okay? What kind of society do we have where these things are considered normal? They're not sustainable. They aren't. President Obama with the gun thing. Do you have any idea how small the numbers are of folks that buy firearms from gun shows without a background check? Let me tell you how it typically works, okay? Almost all of the booths at a gun show are federally licensed stores that are there to do retail business and must, by federal law, do a background check. You will see folks walking around with a rifle or something on their back that says for sale. Almost every one of those firearms are sold to a federally licensed store that buys it for inventory and resells it and does a background check. We are talking about a number that is so indivisibly small that you have to pause and go, obviously that's not what he's doing then. He knows these numbers as well as anybody else does. What's he really doing? Well, let's pause and think about it for a minute. He's defined that if you sell 2 or more firearms in a calendar year, you must seek a federal firearms license. I say, well, okay, I don't agree with that, by the way. I think that's an infringement on your Second Amendment, but we have a difference of opinion. Let's say the majority of people agree with it. Okay, how do they do that? How do they go around? How do they police that? What's the action that allows them to police it? Let me help you. It's a National Firearms Registry. Okay? Now, do you think it's a good idea? By the way, there are some people listening, I know this, that are nodding up and down thinking, yeah, that's a wonderful idea. I don't think it's a good idea that you register that I have the firearm I got from my dad who got it from his dad who bought it in the 1920s without a firearms background check, by the way. And during that period of time, it shot a lot of cans and paper plates. Okay? Do I need to register that in a national registry? And then I go, okay, well, why? Why is it so important that our government is going to spend a couple $2 billion, literally, to create a national registry? Not to mention, he's openly talked about creating the size of ATF. We need a lot more federal employees. That's a really good idea. Our government isn't big enough now. Let's inject some more hot air into it. And I go, okay, well, 2 firearms a year, which can be done in one trade, by the way. Most of the folks that are doing these things are old wrinkly guys like me. It's nonsensical until you say, what would be the purpose of spending $1 billion on a national registry for firearms to make sure everyone knows that you inherited your grandfather's 22? What's the purpose of that? Is it really to make sure that someone doesn't make a trade with his buddy over 2 handguns?
Does that sale also include, like, I've sold 2 to your store?
Yep.
So now I'd have to go get a license?
I don't think so, because I think he likes federal firearm stores. Ooh. And I've had people on Facebook, by the way, say to me, why are you complaining? It just means you're going to make more money. No, it doesn't, folks. This is not about money. This is about what America is going to decide it's going to be. He loves to say that we're the most gun-violent state in the world. It's just not true. It's absolutely not. It's categorically, it's not, by the way, it's not even a difference of opinion. It's a bold-faced lie. An interesting part, before you go there, Matt, an interesting thing, let's compare us to Russia. Normally the uber left, and I'm not talking about your average Democrat walking down the street. I'm talking about the uber left that would like a national gun registry. Okay, I'm talking about President Obama. Normally those folks love to look at European countries, like, let's look at Russia, where their death by violence rate was 5 times that of the United States. And so how did President Putin handle that? Last year, he enacted some laws that allowed people to conceal carry firearms to protect themselves from people that were beating their brains out with baseball bats. Can we wake up and take a long look at ourselves and say, how come it is that we had a society without mass murder by firearms, even though they did burn schools down with dynamite. Let's not talk about that because that's outside of the dialogue. How come it is when we trained all the people to not call guns taboo, we didn't sensationalize them and have cable TV spill their face and name across the airwaves for 3 or 4 days? Before that, when guns weren't taboo and you had a range in the basement of the high school, we didn't have this. The more we tighten it up, the more unscrewed it gets.
Oh, no, I asked you about that last night, too. Hey, how many shootings happened at school when they allowed these things? Is that why maybe they stopped allowing these things? You told me no. I'm like...
The next generation older than me jokes when they come to the shop. And the shop is in Nunica now. For several years it was in Spring Lake. And I say that just so you know the geography I'm talking about. They joke about how the school bus used to look like a pipe fitters convention. Because when it went by you, all you could see was barrels of firearms in the windows of the school bus. School bus, not Pop-Tarts. We're talking about shotguns and rifles. Because when they got to school, they would, depending on what school they were attending, they'd take their firearm to either the principal's office at one of the schools, the other one went to the shop teacher. By the way, folks, we don't teach shop class anymore. Think about that. 95% of our curriculum is for college preparatory courses. Colleges say that our young students are not ready for college, and we're not teaching trade at all. Are we surprised with the results we're getting yet? Let's defy common sense for as long as we can and see if we still have a union of states when we're done. It's just as an amazing thing to me. But no, to answer your question, that pipe fitter convention, which was the school bus, those folks would take their firearms to school, and if they weren't involved in some kind of training exercise at school, when school was over with, they'd go get their gun and they'd go hunting. It was an American tradition, and there was no mass murders with firearms, even though there was a dynamite guy, and there was a guy out in San Francisco with 2 big old butcher knives. But let's not talk about those things because they don't fit this way the way the media wants to portray it. Just like the 2 news reports I was involved in. I was only involved in 2 news reports, and both of them were grossly biased.
Impulse buy with a question mark. That really disgusted me when I saw that, Mike. I went, that's the article title? I didn't realize it had been up there for, a week.
Or a wild laugh as they announced President Obama's executive orders. Now think about that for a minute. That's not what happened. It was a bold-faced lie. It wasn't a difference in opinion. It was a lie. It was designed to cause you to think in a different way than America has thought for over 200 years. We're changing, but we're allowing it to happen. And the proper antidote to allowing it to happen is to start informing yourself. Pay attention, please. Things are changing, and they're not for the better.
One of the things you told me yesterday, which was interesting, I hadn't thought of, was about the one gentleman who actually sells guns that he's collected over his lifetime, almost like an investment as supplemental income.
That's what he does. He's got a very large collection. He's never shot anybody. I don't know how that happened. All of his guns must be broken. He's got a very large collection. Now he's cashing them out because he's almost 80 years old, and he's using it exactly as you just said, as a supplemental income. Guns that he paid $50 for in 1960, some of them are now worth $1,000 and $1,500 because they're collector's items. They weren't evil. They were a collection. It's like buying little blocks of gold. That's how I see it. Listen, if you want to know what Renegade River's all about, go to renegaderiver.com. If you want to tell me I'm crazy, you're welcome to do that at Talk Mike Hewitt. That's on Twitter, or you can come to /The Mike Hewitt Show on Facebook. Find us also at themikehewittShow.com. Thank you very, very much for listening. Please help us change America. We've got some problems, folks.